Hey gang, so here we go. John Carew and Ben Curtis dropped some good information on us in the last Star Citizen Live, and it feeds into the last long form vid I just did. And with the info dropped, I can go through and make some updates and some inferences on the ships left in the backlog, along with some juicy hints they've been dropping for next month's Apollo release. I also strongly suspect there's a Wolf variant out there, and I'm pretty sure I know exactly what it is and what it'll do. So if that sounds good, let's get this. Brand new graphic. I figured that I wouldn't just rehash what I did a couple days ago. That was a deep dives anyways, and this one isn't. That one covered every ship that we know about. This one just covers the backlog ship. Mostly. We'll get there. Given what they told us last Thursday, I figured I could just zero in on the backlog ships. Again, this is just the ships that they haven't been developing yet, with one exception. So maybe a couple exceptions. So this isn't the vid where I'll talk about ships that need an update or a rework, which, by the way, are all of them. That will always be the case as long as the game exists, because they will always be tweaking and updating things, and ships will always fall out of the state of the art of whatever they're developing at the time. Real quick, this vid's going to be on the ships of the backlog, with a few exceptions. Again, this means ships that CIG has sold to us, but haven't been released to us yet. My speculation vids are something else, but let me know if you want to see another one. For the exceptions to that backlog rule, they were ones that were specifically mentioned in the Star Citizen episode live that I'll be referencing here, so I figured that's probably my loophole. Good? Good. Let's get into it. This clusters are ships that are in the backlog or in development right now. Yeah, the in development thing is cheating, but it's my channel. Bite me. From here, I'm going to just drag and drop ships into these various categories. So we have the usual Venn diagram here of why various ships aren't in development and when I might expect them. These are typically because they're either too big, too weird, or their loop isn't in yet, or there's technology for a loop that isn't in yet. Beyond that, yeah, there's a few new categories here. 2026, which is ships that I think will either drop or enter the production pipeline next year, or if not drop, they'll at least make it a long ways into development. They'll enter the radar. In production means they are in production right now and should be hitting the verse soon. Soon's doing a lot of heavy lifting here, but we'll get to that in a bit. Finally, I have not on the radar, which is this little section down here, which means these ships are probably a ways off for whatever reason. And from here, I'll drop them off into the various Venn diagram buckets. So let's get into it. Let's go ahead and start with the ones that we know are in production and that they talked about in the show. And then I'll probably get into the blue sky speculation stuff. Yeah, the Apollo is confirmed to be dropping next month, which is only about a week or actually a couple days away at this point. They even did an update on their healing and medical treatment write-up, but I wasn't noticing any big reveals in that doc yet. So this is what they had to say about the Apollo.
Since we have revealed that the Apollo is coming next month, how are drones such as repair and medical coming along?
Drones will not be releasing as part of the Apollo launch. We'll rip that band-aid off now. When we were developing the ship, obviously the Apollo, I want to say it was 2017 originally concepted.
17 or 18, I remember.
17 or 18. The idea of medical gameplay then is very different to the idea of medical gameplay now. And we have people working on updates to the medical gameplay system right now, beyond what we talked about, the medical beacon. And when we were looking at the ship, the drones was this sort of gray area. They said they would do one thing in the concept. That sort of doesn't really apply in the game loop we have now for medical.
So no medical drone. and it remains to be seen if one will ever be introduced, but they preserved the space for it. Right now, drones are being spun up for construction. It sounds like they might look at the Apollo after that and see if a medical drone is really necessary. It kind of makes sense, as we didn't even have medical guns when the Apollo was concepted, I don't think. Just the medical pens and the oxy pens. So it's not that the Apollo isn't going to get its medical drone on launch. It's that it might not ever get medical drones at all. Medical drones might not even be a thing from the sounds of it. That's the big one. And you'll get all the Apollo modules, which was the different layouts of the different tiers of medical beds. All of them will come with the basic Apollo package, so that's good. Also, strong hints lately that we'll be getting some changes to medical gameplay to go along with it. And I've been expecting this one for a long time. What'll it be? That's honestly hard to say, but based on what they've said in the past, I'm guessing they'll be aligning regeneration back to the tier of the med bed. Previously, that was only possible in tier 1 beds, which again, the tiers kind of go opposite. So the best tier is tier 1, the worst tier is tier 3. Basically things like hospitals, the Endeavor Hope, and yeah, the Apollo. One of the versions does have a tier 1 bed. They might also introduce charge drain into the mix, or some element of that, requiring a person to top up their medical unit with med goo in order to have it heal or regenerate people, but we'll see on that one. They've dropped a couple little pictures of things that seem to indicate that. And if you go into, I believe it's the Medical Pisces, the C8R, there are now little areas directly below the sort of regeneration kiosk where you can put things in. And it seems like that is in the mix. So they kick things off with the 600i, and you'll notice I don't have a little icon for it. That's because the 600 is already in game. But I'm slapping it down here because they talked about it in the show. And yeah, I'm still sticking to this vid mostly being about ships they've concepted and sold to us, but haven't dropped in the game yet. And the 600i obviously has 2 versions currently in the game. And yeah, don't at me in the comments about how broken they are. I have one, trust me, I know. But this is what John and Ben had to say about it.
The first question is simply 600i rework when?
So yeah, we've done the concepts. We've already shown some of that, I believe, last year. Sorry, it kind of blurs a little bit. It's no production work is currently happening on it, and it's not on our sort of like rolling 12 to 18 month schedule at the moment.
Everything we showed with those concept images is pretty much accurate still. Big highlights being the Explorer gets a medical bed, and the cargo bay of it gets large enough to hold a Nova tank. And why it constantly, well, not constantly, why it never seems to happen is that really 600i owners have a functional ship. So when it comes to prioritizing what do we want to work on next, redoing the 600i takes the place of something else that doesn't exist yet. So still super excited to do it. I think it's going to be a big update when it happens, but it's just finding the right time to do it.
So yeah, it's on their radar for sure, but it's falling into the not a priority category. And yeah, I kind of get that. We do have a ship in game. You can fly around in it, and it mostly works, even if it's outdated and its innards are a weird mess made by a committee. They'll get around to it one day. And what the hell? While we're on it, the G12 is in the same boat.
Where is the bloody G12?
This is another one of those vehicles that goes on the schedule. It's a nice little clean cut. Here's X weeks of time. We've got a strong concept for it, and then something happens and it moves, and it's really annoying because it would tick the box of all the Origin ships done. And I think that would be, I guess, with the exception of Kruger, the first like properly complete manufacturer lineup.
They know it's there, it's just not a priority. So this is where I'm going to shift this vid just a hair. It's about resources. The first set of resources are the number of devs they have making these ships, which is obviously limited. But the other resource is the amount of money they make off of sales of ships. That's literally how the entire project is funded, at least to this point. I'm going to drop this right down here and not on the radar. They've had a focus of rolling out ships straight to flyable in recent times, and you'll notice most of what they've been rolling out is typically smaller and easier to make, and they have been straight to flyable, not concepts. We haven't gotten too many giant complex ships in concept for quite a bit, but their cost benefit analysis is apparently saying they'll make more money releasing something new and shiny and sexy than they will reselling a two-seater ground touring vehicle that's real similar to the Cyclone, STV, and MTC. So like the 600, it is on their radar. It just might be a while before they crowbar it into the mix to be produced. So goes down there and not on the radar. Finally, like the 600i, I don't have a little icon for this one, but this is just a suspicion on my part. They're dropping hints about this one throughout the vid, so I thought I'd give my thoughts here on what's obviously a variant dropping in the next month or so.
And the same with the Wolf. The generic size 4s would have made it sort of just a Talon, but smaller.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a compromise. It's a compromise between like design requirements and balancing and everything like that, and also between the the visuals that we're trying to achieve. Just because they're not generic size 4, size 5, or whatever that means, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's never going to be options for other weapons for those ships. It just means that they won't necessarily use all of the ships, all of the kind of weapons that are generic in that size class. But it doesn't mean that you're only going to ever have one weapon for a particular ship.
Yeah, much like the Archimedes and the Merlin has a big Gatling gun on it as its main weapon. The Archimedes is purely energy, but has 4 smaller energy weapons instead. At a guess, they'll do the same thing with the Wolf. The version we have now is 2 bespoke size 5 ballistic Gatlings. I'm guessing we'll be getting a version that has 4 size 3 hardpoints and comes with energy weapons prior repeaters. That's just a guess, but I think it's likely. I honestly wasn't expecting much on this one, but we did actually get some news on the BMM.
BMM.
Now we're getting to the good questions. It's not in the 2026 schedule at the moment in terms of releasing. I do hope, though, fingers crossed, everything goes to plan, that we will start putting people back on it at the end of, in the back half of 2026. We got quite far into White Box. We showed the progress at CitizenCon. It's not moved an inch from where we last showed it.
Yeah, that was quite a tough thing to show, because we wanted to be honest about it and show where we were up to with it, but also appreciate, if we're still on stage going, look at the BMM, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, it's coming, and it's like, I'm just trying to be honest. So I think, as John says, we're hoping to get artists and designers and the content team kind of back on it next year, but that it's not currently in the schedule for next year's release. But as we keep mentioning a lot, things change, but that's a big one. It's going to take a lot to do, so the chances of it moving forward is pretty slim right now.
As bitter as I am about the fact that we'll get the Kraken and probably the Privateer before the Merchantman, this little tidbit actually made me feel a little bit better. That's weird, because the message I'm seeing from other content creators is all bad news, Merchantman owners. I guess I don't actually see it that way. My impression was that the Merchantman was mostly being pushed by Paul Jones, the concept artist behind it. And when he left CIG, the wind went out of the Merchantman's sails when he left. And John and Ben pulled it for stuff they were more interested in, which honestly, I could kind of understand that to a point. It's frustrating as it's a 2014 concept, but still. But this makes it sound like not only do both Ben and John really want to see this thing made, particularly after so much progress was made on it, but they're hoping that word again, to move some people onto it in 2026. Granted, that definitely means at the end of 2026, if I had to guess, which would mean the Merchantman could be something like 2027 or 2028 ship at the earliest, but that's still better than arriving at the same time as, say, the heat depth of the universe. But I'm not bitter. So obviously I don't have a little picture for this one. They mentioned this one here.
We've succeeded. That said, as I'm thinking about it right now, if you go all the way back to our like original crowdfunding campaign, I'm talking about the original stretch goals, I think we're still on the hook for a Battlecruiser at some point, which will undoubtedly be the biggest ship in the game. Are we still going to do that?
Yeah, it's looking really, really cool with the progress we've made on it so far. So I think the Battlecruiser, on paper, it's a big old ship, and we are. I hope I'm allowed to say this. We're in very early stages of kind of our concept work on the Battlecruiser at the moment. Too late, Jared. Sorry.
We're going for it now.
We have to do it. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. It's not coming this year. It's not coming anytime soon. Okay, so just don't want to get anybody's hopes up or anything.
It's one of it's a big ship. It needs a bunch of concept to get it right. Super happy with where it's going so far. I think it allows us to take a lot of the things that we've learned on our existing kind of ships and our larger ships and kind of wrap them into a big powerhouse and deliver something that we're kind of like we're super excited about. Not just in terms of like firepower, but what we can deliver from a ship this size with everything that we know now. So
yeah, it's unlike any of our existing capital ships. I think it's gonna be pretty cool.
I had always thought they had just morphed this stretch goal into the Idris or possibly the Jav, and they just said, there, it's Battlecruiser-esque. But it turns out that no, they actually have plans for a whole nother ship. Just real quick here, because the speculation on this one has been wild, I thought I'd just explain what we're talking about here. Now, keep in mind that CIG is kind of all over the place with their ship categories. For example, while I'd consider the Hammerhead and maybe the Perseus to be corvettes, I would think of the Polaris as being more of a traditional destroyer. And the Jav would probably be something more like a traditional cruiser, maybe a battleship, maybe a frigate, depending on what you're talking about with the size of the guns. I'd lean towards cruiser or battleship. Cruisers are kind of tweeners. They're faster than battleships and more heavily armed and armored than destroyers, but they're slower than destroyers and less armed and armored than battleships. So yeah, tweeners. At the moment, we only have one destroyer in the game, which is the Jav, and we don't have a battleship. The Bengal is a carrier, but it's probably as close as we're gonna get to a battleship, just given its gun. So size-wise, you're talking about something that's bigger than a Jav and more expensive. That's ridiculous. It'll be cool, but yeah, the Jav costs over 3,000 as a crew of what, 80 people? So factor that in. Really, I expect this to be more of something we build in our player-created star bases than buy in the store. I mean, people will definitely buy them and soul them around the verse and wonder why their ship is so nerfed when it's killed by a small ship or group of ships. But again, ship sales are how CIG is funding this thing, at least for now. Someone will buy one. Several someones probably. I always kind of suspected that this was a concept art flub or an early concept that was tossed. It turns out that I was half right.
What happened to the 4th Zeus variant? It was briefly shown during CitizenCon 2953, and it was apparently called the Zeus Mark II ST. I don't remember that, but I was really busy.
I do, because a fun story here is I put the wrong image in the PowerPoint slide for the presentation. And I noticed that on stage when I turned around and looked at the screen, and it had all 4 there. So yes, there is a 4th variant called the ST. And the reason it isn't really known about beyond there is it has a sort of game loop that isn't really fully fleshed out. So we decided not to launch it with the other 3. And when that game loop is more fleshed out, we'll talk more about it.
So there was an ST variant out there, but it was for a game loop that's not in the game yet. And one that John Crew is a little cagey about naming, which suggests it's not something mundane like bounty hunting or data running. So what could that loop be? A lot of people just assumed when they saw the ST that it stood for second turret. I never bought that explanation, but now I'm left wondering what ST actually could stand for, if anything specific. I don't think it'd be a base builder, so maybe a hacking ship of some type? Science? Who knows? Maybe you do. Let me know your guesses down below. So this one kind of breaks the rule because they never actually sold this to us, but they did mention it when they dropped the STV. Basically, it's just a little bit more of a World War II Jeep Willys than the STV. Kind of a cool concept, but yeah, duplicative and probably not a priority. They'll make it one day. And that's really it for what they talked about. Although the entire show's worth a watch, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the backlog real quick. And I'll just throw them into these categories with a little explanation for each. Again, I don't want this thing to run too long. I will run these in order. So the oldest one that we have that has not been released, the oldest concept we have, is the Merchantman. But close behind it is this guy, which is the Whole Bee. And the Whole Bee is not on the radar. It's a great size ship. It's kind of a really good cargo mover in a good size. But we haven't heard about it, seen it, or anything else since information dropped about it during concept. So, yeah, 2014, 2015, something like that. Let's go on. So next we have the Whole D, which again is enormous. I'm going to actually say this one is probably enormous, and they don't really have the economy that can handle a ship this size. If that's true for the Whole D, it is definitely true for the Whole E. The Whole E is just gargantuan, and there's no place for it in the verse right now. You wouldn't be able to buy enough cargo at any location to justify it. So next up we have the Orion. This one probably fits. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely too large, but it's also the tech. They don't know what the large scale of mining is going to be all about. This thing is going to eat asteroids. Can we eat asteroids right now? Kind of. We can break them up, but not to the scale that this thing can. And it's got a refinery in it. So yeah, a lot of things working against the Orion. Next up, we have the Genesis. I would say this thing is big, but it's not huge. I think it, stat-wise, I think it's very similar to the C2 in size. Could be wrong about that. I don't have the stats up in front of me. I'm sure someone will let me know in the comments, but this one's more loop. We just don't have passenger gameplay in the game yet. So yeah, not in the game yet. Tag teaming with the Banu Merchantman, we've got the Endeavor. Just a bunch of weird things. It's fully modular. The front can break off and fly out. It has a bunch of loops that aren't in the game. It has a radio telescope, which who the hell knows what that'll do. It's got farms, which we might actually see pretty soon. Great big hospital module. I want to say a particle accelerator. What will we do with particle accelerator? We'll probably have to do with crafting, but it's not in the game yet. The Crucible. So again, this is another big one, but I would say this is probably more loop and tech oriented because this thing is sort of the king repair ship. They have mentioned it somewhat recently in the sense that they know it exists, but as for what it will actually do, I'll just put it firmly in the loop. I would assume they're going to kind of adjust this thing to be kind of a crafting ship eventually, but it was originally the capital, the end game repair ship. Obviously, neither one of those things, either crafting or repairs, really in the game enough to justify this thing yet. The Pioneer, surprisingly, this thing is in production right now. I'm going to put this in 2026. It is in production right now. We are probably going to get it next year. Obviously, this is the base building ship. I think basically I thought that this year was going to be the year of base building. Instead, they went and they made it stabilization. I think next year they're going to get back into base building. The Vulcan. So this is another one. I'm going to put it right in between these two. This is a repair ship, and we'll be able to have drones and things like that. But they haven't mentioned it for a while. It's definitely not too large. It's kind of, I wouldn't say a small ship, but it's definitely not a large ship. But yeah, they don't really have repair drones in the game yet, in the sense that ships repairing ships. They have it on the little micro gun, but they haven't expanded that up. And then next on the list is obviously the Apollo. We're getting it next month, so not going to be in there for too long. So one of the surprises, yeah, the Kraken is in production right now. Will we get it in 2026? I don't think we're going to get it in 2026. This thing is freaking enormous. So actually, yeah, it's kind of a good thing that I put too large right there. Anyway, we're going to be getting it within the next year or two. I would assume 2027 just because it is huge, but they are actively working on it right now. The Ranger. So again, the Ranger is one that's not on the radar, but they have mentioned in the past. Actually, I might put it here in tech because I've said the thing that's stalling the Ranger, this little motorcycle that's probably about the size of the Pulse, maybe a little bit larger. The thing that's stalling is they're trying to get two-wheeled physics working the way that they want it to, and they haven't been able to do that yet. The Nautilus are mine-laying ships. So this is, yeah, kind of down here in this category. I gotta make this side of the VIN more larger. But anyway, yeah, it's large ship. Obviously, we don't even have space mines in the game yet. So there's not really a reason to put out a ship that spits out space mines when you don't have space mines. It's a ways out. I would think probably 27, 28, they'll probably swing back and put someone on it, but it is a big ship. I think it's not quite as large as the Polaris, but close. G12 I already talked about. That's the next ship that's in the timeline. The Perseus. So the Perseus, obviously in production. I believe they haven't said if we're going to get it for SitCon or IAE, but we're almost certainly getting it for one of those two. I would assume it is going to be the showboat of IAE, but we'll see. We'll see. The Railin. So I have a nagging suspicion that the Railin is actually in production right now, and I have a few reasons for that. Watch my other vids. It's not an especially large ship. It animates a lot. I might just put it kind of on the edge of the Venn diagram there between Loop and Tech and Too Weird. It's an alien ship. It's bigger, but it's not enormous. It's slightly smaller than the Starfarer, I believe. And the actual livable space is probably smaller than that. But yeah, it's more all the animations that go into it that are kind of slowing it down. The Liberator. So the Liberator is, I would almost put the Liberator in 2026. It's not an extremely complicated ship. It is a very large ship. It's a very simple ship and has a small crew. It's just a matter of priority for them right now that it would take some time to make it. It is big. But again, not complicated, so it seems like it wouldn't be too far off. So next up is the Odyssey. Forgive my little hacky Photoshop job there. This is a big ship. I'd almost put it down here in this very crowded area between Loop and Tech and Too Large. It does have a refinery on it, so yeah, I guess that counts. But it's more that it's a big ship, it's a miss ship. when they go back, I don't know if they're going to have a year dedicated to MISC like they did for RSI, but there's a lot of very dated MISC ships out there, like the Starfarer, like the Freelancer. I've talked about that stuff before, but yeah, know that the Odyssey is, when they start doing a bunch of MISC ships, this is probably when they'll do it. Possibly working on the Starlancer was building up an asset pack for this thing, but they haven't mentioned it. So for right now, it's just kind of out here in the not touched area. Expanse. So the Expanse is a refinery ship. We do not have refining in the game. I know people are going to argue and say, well, what are the refinery stations? That is a button press and a countdown timer. All they are doing is just sort of saying, you click this button, you get your thing in 2 days, kind of a deal. The loop for refining will be extremely complex, if I had to guess, if mining is any indicator. And this one is the one that's going to kick that off once they start working on refinery and ships. So if we get a refinery or something like the Galaxy that's probably coming next year, look for the Expanse to be somewhere in that loop. And also once they start working on MISC ships. So the Legionnaire made it a pretty long way into development. There was a few monthly reports where they're showing off pictures of it, saying that it advanced to late gray box. They had started working on LODs. And then we stopped hearing about it. What happened was this ship requires hacking to kind of do its main ship, or its main loop. It's a boarding ship. So yeah, and until they have hacking in the game, we're not going to see the Legionnaire drop, even though it's probably mostly complete. The Galaxy. So I'm going to put the Galaxy in 2026. What they had told us was they're going to work on the whole RSI line, and then they're going to work on the Galaxy, then they're going to work on the Perseus. But they flip-flopped those, and they decided to work up the Perseus first. I suspect because the Perseus is in Squadron 42, and the Galaxy isn't. But yeah, the Galaxy, big modular ship, but it's apparently the next one they're going to work on. They have a ton of RSI assets now. So expect to see this one pretty quick. This is probably going to be the big ship that they show off next year, along with Pioneer, the Kraken, stuff like that. But again, Pioneer was probably a 2027 ship. I'm sure they'd love to get it out the end of 2026. Same thing with the Kraken. It's a 2027 ship. We'll just go with that. The Zeus MR. So this is kind of a weird one. This is the combat interdiction version of the Zeus. It's got 2 turrets, got an interdictor, and I believe an EMP. I think it has both. We haven't seen it yet. Don't know what's holding it up. It doesn't seem like a particularly complicated ship. They've already got the other Zeuses. I'm guessing it's just not a priority for them because they've got other ships that do similar things. So yeah, not on the radar. The Arastra. So again, this one's going to sit down here with these guys. We don't, it does have some transformation things. So, I mean, it could kind of go over here, but it's mostly because they don't have its loop in. It's kind of falls into the same problems that the Orion has. It's a big ship. They don't have mining to that scale down yet. Like, we don't know what a tier 3 mining laser will do, and we don't have refining in the game. So that's where we're at with that. The Ironclad is in production right now, and I am thinking we might be seeing the Ironclad pretty soon. Will we be seeing it for IAE or SitCon? I don't think so, but we might be seeing it for Invictus next year. But if it were to drop for SitCon or IAE, I wouldn't be shocked. The internals of the ship are not overly complicated. They did mention in the show that they weren't going to drop it without the command module working. And if they got the command module working, they would probably transfer that over to the Caterpillar, which might take some work. So maybe this one is kind of in a similar category to the Legionnaire, where they kind of have it pretty far along, but the gameplay isn't quite there, so it might linger in this sort of in production category. Actually, I could just I could put this up here, but yeah, loop tech makes more sense. And then I'm going to finish this off with the Paladin. We know the Paladin is in production. We don't know when we're going to get it. I would think it is probably an Invictus ship next year. So actually I could put it down here, but we know it's in production. We know they're making it right now and it's pretty far along. The only thing they're trying to figure out is the little sponson guns on the side. So gang, I like to do this every once in a while just to kind of show when people are talking about ships in the backlog, this is what they mean. But you can kind of see the actual ships they aren't working on are right here. And the only ones that I don't have a really good reason for why they're not working on them is over here. And you can kind of see, even with those, the reason why they're not working on them is either because we already have a lot of vehicles in that category, so there's not a pressing need for it, like the G12 or the Galaxy, or not the Galaxy, the Zeus MR. The whole B is really the only one that I can't say, why don't we have that ship? But again, we have other ships in that category, so it kind of makes sense. These are the only ones that are question marks. All the other ones, we have answers for why they're not working on right now. And I just kind of like to do this every once in a while to just kind of point that out. And gang, that is all I got for this one. Thanks for sitting it out. Let me know what you think down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't. I am still trying to grow this channel for some reason. Catch you next time.